everyone. Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the best version of yourself. Today is, as always, a great episode. Super excited for it, but how are you feeling today, Cesar?
Pretty good. I am prepared. We are ready to do this podcast.
Yeah, funny story is that we actually recorded this podcast yesterday, and then when Caesar went to edit it, something had messed up in the recording, and it wasn't gonna the video wouldn't have been salvageable. So
now
here we are, round two.
Now it's fixed.
We took it as a blessing in disguise. I was like, okay, maybe I'll plan out the podcast a little bit better and be a little bit more organized. So it's not the worst thing. Definitely was a bummer. Caesar came in the room. He was like, So, about the podcast.
Yeah, it was bad. I was trying everything to fix it, and I realized it was unsalvageable, so.
Yeah. But we've got a little Christmas tree in the background. It's finally December, which is absolutely bonkers. Where did the year go? I feel like, I know it sounds so cheesy, but I do feel like yesterday was January.
It's crazy because I feel like it was just my birthday not too long ago.
Yeah, your birthday was in May.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like
it's insane.
Everyone talks about how January goes by so slow, but then the rest of the year goes by so fast. And I feel like this year, January went by so fast for me. But I feel like it also has to do with your life. And for instance, my work schedule is pretty hectic, so it makes the week go by pretty fast. December is great for a lot of things. Great for Christmas, the holidays. There's Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all of that good stuff. So there's a bunch of holidays in December, and I don't want to skip past those. I myself love Christmas. That's why I have this little tree right here, because right now that's all we can have. We can't have a real tree, because ideally that would be
the best.
That would be my thing.
I never had a real tree, but yeah.
Wow, you've really never had a real tree?
Never had a real tree.
That's wild. I feel like real trees are the only way to go. The only time I've ever had a fake tree was when I was in college. I had a fake Christmas tree, and obviously now, because we don't have our own place, I'm not gonna ask Noah to get a real tree. Plus, they're expensive.
Yeah, they're over $100, depending on the size of the tree and all that.
It depends the type of tree. There's also Douglas firs, and that's actually the only one I know. But I know there's different types of Christmas trees.
And then you gotta get the little mounts and stuff like that, so.
My mom, she used to be like, can we just get a fake Christmas tree? I'd be like, no, we need a real one. It's not Christmas without a real one. And I don't know, the smell of them is just incredible. It really kind of brings in the season. So, yeah, I don't want to skip over any of that stuff. But December is also a good time to start thinking about the new year and looking back and reflecting on what this year has encompassed and what you've done this year, and kind of decide what you want to do next year. So the topic of today's episode is how to plan and set goals in 2023, because I just think it's so important. I feel like so many people talk about it, but when it comes to goals, there's a lack of execution. And it's also when you're doing it towards the beginning of the year. I was reading yesterday that resolutions are everyone has a negative connotation with resolutions, because most people don't ever actually stick to the resolutions. So I think in the mindset of shaping it as I have these goals this year, and being specific about those goals, and then also planning out how you're going to execute, sets you up way better for the new year. I also think people tend to want to kind of make these changes in the beginning of the year, because it is really a fresh start. Everything in 2022 will be in the past, and it really gives you a clean slate to just start working towards what you actually want, especially if you didn't during the prior year, It
helps people realize all right, I need to either change something in my life, or maybe you want to learn something new. That's usually a common thing, especially when it comes to resolutions. I know I've also, I think we've all been there where we made a resolution. We're I'm going to do this year. January comes around, January 1, and you don't do it.
I hate when people say January 1. I'm sorry. January 1st, man. I've heard so many people refer to it as January 1. What?
I was thinking of Michael Scott, because he's remember when he's talking about
he's I said I was going to floss more this year. You know what? January 1st, 12:01 a.m., blood everywhere or something like that. It was so funny. But yeah, I mean, it is like there's a lot of stigma about people not sticking to their New Year's resolutions. I also do want to preface this by saying the New Year isn't the only time that you can kind of apply what we're going to be talking about in this episode. I think at any point in the year you can make changes in your life. You know, the New Year isn't the end all be all. Like if you don't make these changes in the New Year, you gotta wait till next. It's really not. But I think a lot of people start thinking about this kind of stuff. Setting goals and like planning for 2023 is like twofold. There's your personal development and then there's your professional development. And some of that will probably be intertwined, but I think there is also a need for it to be separate. And kind of the way I was thinking about this yesterday when I was planning this back out, since we had to re-record, was when you're thinking about your personal goals, you have, I think, a lot more control over your personal goals, right? And when you're thinking about your professional goals, you do have some control over those, but it also depends, like, with your company and your leadership team and how involved you are in the process of communicating what you want out of your career. Ultimately, you do have some control there, but there also has to be some things that align within your company for you to achieve some of those goals, you know? So that's kind of the way that I was thinking about it. But I think the first part, obviously, like the planning part, is like setting goals for either your personal or your professional development, and like how do you do that? So how do you go about either planning and setting more planning goals? Like what goals do you want to
planning goals? Well, it's funny you say this because like I think it was a few weeks ago where we sat down and like planned as far as like content goals for my YouTube channel, you know, like where I started at the beginning of the year, where I'm at now, and like where I see myself, what type of content to create, like how consistent I need to be. So step one, I think for us, and when I was doing that planning too as well, was like what like number or where do I want to be like by X time period. So like I would probably say it's kind of like a SMART goal, you know. It's what is it?
So SMART goals, that's like so cheesy, but it's so true. And it applies to any type of goal setting. It has to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And I think time-bound is something that we always forget when we're setting goals, is that you need to set a time frame. So I think when we were planning out your YouTube like content strategy and where you want to be by the end of next year, we took it quarter by quarter. And we said, at the end of this quarter, this is how many subscribers we want you to have. This is how much content you should have published. And we also wrote down, obviously, lists of, like, content ideas, but we set it between quarters. And it's similar to how, like, a business does it. It's like they usually set, like, quarterly goals. And this quarter, this is what we want to achieve. And I think you can do the same thing with your personal goals, is setting that time frame. Is like, you can set, like, I want to eat... even if it's something I want to eat healthier, okay, like when do you want to be like on a fully healthy diet by? Like, and you can take it step by step. You don't have to be like, oh, day one, eliminate everything, but you do need to take it. I think you need to take it slow and kind of work towards it. And I think when you set goals that are like time bound, it helps you do that because you don't have to make that 360 change in one day.
Yeah.
You know, you can inch towards it. And it's a lot easier when you do it that way too, because as humans, we
like to see progress, you know.
Well,
like,
that's not where I was gonna go. I was gonna say we don't like change, and it's uncomfortable. And obviously, if you try to make a million changes or really just a really quick change, a lot of times it doesn't stick because it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable. You know, so if you inch towards it, it won't be as uncomfortable as it would if you just completely like cut something cold turkey. You know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one other thing too is I feel like we all like to see like our where we're at, where we're going, and like those like tiny little
tiny wins.
Yeah, tiny wins. The progress along the way, like also like motivates us. Like, all right, now I see, you know, like it's working. What I'm doing is working. And then if it's not working, like what can you change to make it
but I think so too. I think so too with like if it's working or it's not working, you gotta think about like, is it reasonable for this to be working in this time frame? You know, like maybe like for instance, I work in SEO. 3 months might not be enough time to see if the strategy is working. So like you can't make that decision right then. And I think you have to think about that too, is like how long should this take you, and like, is it reasonable to say that this should be done in this time frame? And that's what it's also be like, attainable. Is it attainable? So I think when you're also setting like personal goals, you got to ask yourself a couple questions. Like, where do you want to be? What will add value to your life? You know, what's going to make you happier? And what's going to make you feel better in the long run too? Because like, obviously when we're setting goals for 2023, we're setting for the year, right? But a lot of the decisions you make today will affect you, you know, in 2024, 2025. So you also got to think about it in the big grand scheme of things too. So I think something we've been doing too is probably I want to do even better this year, thinking about not just the year coming up, but, you know, where do we want to be in 3 or 5 years? And I think that can get a little bit hard to picture too, especially when your life currently isn't that in order. I feel like that's been our struggle, is our life for the past couple years. I felt like it's out of whack to plan for 5 years. It's like, well, I don't really know how, like, you know, a lot of our goals depend on if I reach this, then yeah, in year 3 I can be here. But some of our goals like are based on like certain other things getting accomplished, if that makes sense. So I think when you're planning what you want to achieve, you also have to think about the big picture of your life. And I think some people don't do that. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's just kind of how some of us are wired. I know that I'm wired that way. Like when I was in high school, I made a lot of decisions that affected, like, you know, my ability to get into college. Like, I probably could have gotten better colleges if I was thinking, like, long term. But, you know, you're thinking in the here and now, and it's because the here and now is what we're, like, dealing with. You know, it's the day-to-day, and you have to pay attention to it. You don't have to pay attention to the future often. So I think people get stuck in just focusing on getting through each day.
I think it's also the fact that people just don't know what they actually want, you know. And that's the other thing about making goals is that we've all done that. I know I have, where it's like, oh yeah, like I need to make the New Year's coming around. Like usually around this time, people are like, oh, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to improve on next year? And sometimes maybe that goal wasn't something that they wanted to do. It was more of like, not to say forced upon them, but it was just like they just chose it because it was like, maybe it was a trending thing, you know, or whatever it was, but it's not something they actually wanted to do. And so when there isn't that motivation behind the goal in the first place,
it's way hard to achieve.
You're not gonna work at it.
I think that's a lot of that. I think that right there applies to a lot of things in life. For instance, I've been a part of like the hiring process for my company, and like we're looking for some people to join our team. And at the end of the day, I told them, I was like, if people aren't passionate about this, no, they won't be good at it, because like it does require a certain passion. Like if you absolutely hate doing this and you're just doing it for the money, your work won't be quality, and like you won't be wanting to learn more. You won't want to grow. So it's not really easy to work with people who aren't in the mindset to where this is something I want to do. I want to take this as a learning opportunity. I want to get better at this. Yeah. If you don't have that mindset, you're never going to be as good as you could be at something that you are passionate about. And I think passion does align with that. And I think what you mentioned too is like some people don't know what they want. Yeah, it's really actually hard, especially when you're younger, if you're in your 20s, figuring out what you want out of this life. You know, we grow up and most of us spend the first 18 years of our lives like under our parents, like kind of supervision, and like a lot of our framing is shaped from our parents. And so when you get out into, even when you go to college, it can kind of be like a shock of like not knowing how to deal with this new type of lifestyle, not knowing where you should go, or like, and then after graduating college, you're like, I thought, like a lot of people end up in this situation, and we've talked about it so many times on this podcast. They studied something because they thought that this is what they want to do, but in the grand scheme of it, it's like, no, I don't want to do this. I did this because I thought it was a good idea at first, and they find themselves lost. And I think it is really hard to just figure out what you want for yourself, because there is a bunch of opportunity out there, and there is always that kind of concept, could I be doing better at something else? That is something I struggled with. Is this the right fit for me? Like, I know that I can do this, and I know I'm good at this, but could I be better at something else? And that unknown is like kind of debilitating sometimes. You're like, you wonder, like, am I fulfilling my true purpose? I remember when I used to do a lot of writing, and I love writing, and I didn't have a lot of confidence at first, but I had gotten like a lot of compliments from like teachers and in college about my writing, and I wanted to pursue something with it. And then I would think to myself, though, this is something I love, but what if I'm not as good as I think I am? And what if I'm not meant to do this? And that would be heartbreaking because it's something that I love to do.
Yeah.
And there was always a fear that someone was going to tell me, you'll never make it here. Like, you're not good at it. You just won't be successful with this. And I think a lot of people go through that too, where it's like, I have this passion, but like,
people are telling me like that won't work out.
Yeah, people are telling you that it won't work out, or you just aren't really confident in your skills, and it's a whole thing. So I think when it comes to setting, planning the goals, it's like you do have to kind of a self-awareness of like who you are and what you want to achieve, and it's important to spend some time to think about that when you're setting those goals. And like we said, they need to be specific. They need to be measurable. Like, how do you measure at the end of the year where you were and where you are and what you achieved? Attainable. Like, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. Mm-hmm. Like, if we were to say right now, like, Caesar, like, ideally, like, in a perfect world, if we wanted to get your channel to 1 million subscribers, yeah, obviously that's a goal one day, but it wouldn't be smart for us to say next year.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if you really wanted to grow a channel from 0 to 1 million in a year, like, if you had this crazy strategy that you also had money to back it up, like, and you knew, okay, if you wanted to grow a channel based on just trends and what works currently on the YouTube algorithm, don't get me wrong, you could blow up a channel. Like,
it's not about being able to. It's about with what you have and like what you want to do.
Yeah,
it's not like that's what I'm saying. Like for you to say, with the strategy we're currently using and like even ramping up like production, it's not reasonable to say that because
that's what I'm not. I know,
but that's what I'm saying. So does it make sense to bring up that like, well, you could if you really want? No, you can't. I mean, it's not reasonable.
I'm just saying is like, if you had money, a lot of money, like if you had
but we're not talking about like we're talking about what's reasonable and what most people don't have.
No, but that's I was gonna get to that. You said give me a second. I just literally just had to.
But I'm just saying there's no point in bringing up that kind of concept because like we're talking about being realistic and like
No, I mean for some people like if they have plenty of money to they have connections, they know people like.
But I don't think a lot of people have that, Bob.
I know.
That's what I'm saying.
Know.
It's like we're saying. Caesar, being realistic, and if we wanted to grow your channel to 1 million, it just wouldn't be a realistic goal.
Yeah, in a year, yeah.
Yeah, in a year.
Yeah, with what I have, what's at my disposal, yes.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm still, I aim.
It doesn't mean that you can't aim for higher, but it means at the end of the year you're not disappointed because you didn't reach this because it wasn't a realistic goal in the first place.
Yeah, like what else do you want me to say? All I'm saying is that if you had money, but
we're trying to be realistic here. Most people probably don't have that type of money.
I know, I get that. But there is those. You do have those. Every now and then, you do have those. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the weeds of YouTube, but you get people who literally just started recording and they were a certain character. There was something specific about them. And
but to use that as an example is unrealistic for most people.
No, it's just
like when you put that. Well, like this person did. It's like, well, that's like 1 in 1 billion. Like
I mean,
you got to be realistic. It's like if you actually
try.
No, I'm not saying you shouldn't try, but what I'm saying is like if you start trying with that being your goal of like trying to be like exactly like this person.
Oh no, of course.
It wouldn't make sense. You would end up disappointed and probably give up because you set that as your expectation when that's not a realistic expectation to have.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the whole point of like goal setting, goal planning is being realistic about it. Because just because there's one example out there where someone did it, it doesn't mean it can be replicated. No, I mean like that.
I understand that. All I was trying to say with that was just to be don't give up. Have a smart goal.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But that wouldn't be a smart goal, is what I'm saying.
No, I'm not. Oh my gosh.
That's all I'm saying. It's like
I'm not saying that was a smart goal.
This is gonna be counterintuitive because you're bringing this up, and it's like not.
No,
it's not.
No, all I'm saying,
it's not realistic just because there's an example out there.
That was a smart goal.
I'm saying if we want to educate people, Bub, it's probably not the best thing to bring up that example because it's setting the wrong expectation.
Okay, yeah, it's setting the wrong. I mean, I wasn't going with that. I wasn't trying to say that was an expectation. All I was saying was that don't you could use. People have done amazing things with little to nothing with just their phone. And because they were a certain character, again, they were 1 in a million.
Yeah, but it's one in a million.
Don't give up. But don't give up. All I'm saying is don't give up. Or else I would give up if that was the case, right? But I'm not. I'm not going to do that.
But you're also not expecting to reach 1 million followers tomorrow.
I'm not saying that either.
But that's what you're giving off that vibe. I'm saying how it's going to be interpretive.
I'm not saying I'm not trying for that to get off. All I'm saying is that
Jesus Christ, Caesar.
No, you don't let me talk and finish.
Because you're bringing up an example that's not a good example.
I'm not bringing up one example. I'm just saying that it's possible for you to grow with what you have, right? That's all I'm saying is, look, set smart goals, and you never know. So you could set a goal for all I'm saying is you never know. So I could set a goal. For example, I could set a goal we set goals for my channel, for example. But if I set a smart goal for my channel for a certain number of subscribers, but in my mind, in my head, I'm like, I'm 10xing that. In my mind, I want to create content that over delivers and gives value that hopefully maybe I end up exceeding that. And that's just in my mind. But I know that, hey, at the end of the day, this is my goal, but I want to be better. And maybe it's the way I edit. Maybe it's the way I present myself. Maybe it's the way that I'm not saying I'm going to be a character like those that are on there that have blown up, but maybe I'm going to deliver my message or whatever it is I create in a different manner that ends up, the algorithm catches it, and I resonate with a bunch of people next thing you know.
But all I'm saying is at the end of the day, your original goal, the goal that you set, wasn't that million. It was something more realistic. Yes. And if you hit 1 million,
then that's fine.
But your original goal wasn't that, because it'd be unrealistic and you'd be upset that you didn't reach it.
We're all on the same page here.
It doesn't sound like we're on the same page.
No, we are, because you're not listening to me.
I am listening.
Because literally all I was going to say at the end of that last point there was, yes, that I wouldn't be disappointed if I would be disappointed if I set a goal and I'm going to hit 1 million in 1 month. Like, obviously that's extremely extremely unrealistic. But if I did like 10,000 at the end of the year or something like that, right? That was my original goal this year, and I didn't hit it. But I'm like, man, I know I can do that possibly within the next 6 months from now, because I know what works and what doesn't.
Honestly, 5,000 was at the end of this year.
It probably was. I'll have to look at
based on like the trends and like the data that we have, and that's what I'm saying is that, like, at the end of the day, if you consider where you started at the beginning of this year, because you just started posting videos this year, is you started at, like, your channel had like 300 subscribers, and to get to 2,000 took you, I think, last month. So, like, to set like 10,000 doesn't make sense with like what you were currently doing. Yeah,
but at the end of the day,
if you hit it, like, that's great, but you just means you exceeded your goal of 5,000, So that's all I'm saying is that, like, I don't like bringing up, like, well, this post, it happens, because I think then people go and think about these, like, even if we say it's not realistic expectations, but like, well, there still was that one, and that's why I don't like bringing that up, is because you really should set realistic expectations, and, like, not to say you can't be 1 in a million, but you should really aim for something, again.
Yeah, because you're right. It does,
that's
like,
realistic.
It does give people a false sense of hope.
Exactly.
And then they end up like, oh man, I give up, and then it's like,
and they give up, and then they never do anything with it. Like, I had Laura, for instance, one of my friends, who, like, started posting on TikTok during the summer, and she, like, posted, and I was like, well, you got to be consistent with it, and it, like, takes time, It's like, it's not as, like, seamless as, you just post one TikTok and you blow up. It's consistency. And she, like, texted me, like, I posted, like, every day and nothing. And, like, if you have that mindset that, like, and expect, like, for just something to, like, pop off, like, it really does discourage you when something doesn't do as well. Like, I posted last week, I think 15 TikToks. Like, maybe even more, probably close to 20, like, close to like 20, and I was posting at one point like 5 a day, because I know consistency is important, and, like, I did get some traction, I got some more followers, but, like, if I expected just by doing that I was gonna get 1 million, it wouldn't make sense, and it would discourage me if I set that goal, and then it would probably, people give up at that point. I just don't want people to give up either.
Again, that's all I'm saying is I don't want people to give up. Yeah. There's those people that have done amazing and great things with what they had, and it's an inspiration to see that. It gets people, like, pumped to do it, but just don't think that you can copy that exact same formula and see success.
Yeah,
because stuff changes all the time. It's stuff like algorithm changes, trends, all that.
But, like, even if we're not talking about YouTube, like, what works for someone else might not work for you. You know, that's why, like, you know, we talk about that. There's that, I sent Caesar a TikTok and we have to insert it in here.
I'm going to break it down. What you want to do is you want to wake up every morning at 1:47 a.m. You don't even want to eat breakfast. Don't even drink water. Create an LLC as soon as you wake up. Then when you do with that LLC is you go and apply for a business loan, get $100 million within 15 hours. Then you take that $100 million, $50,000, $1 million, then you go buy NBC. Now you own NBC. So when you own NBC, you want to take the money you make from NBC and make a trust fund. Then you want to stop having damn fun. Now life is boring. After that, you want to make sure you stay up for 7 weeks straight, no sleep, no food, no water, you want to fast every day. You don't want to eat at all for 7 hours straight for 70 days straight. You don't want to eat, you only want to drink water. Then from there, you want to purchase a Komodo dragon. When you do that, you buy a pet monkey. With the pet monkey, you send the pet monkey to the moon to go find kryptonite. Once you get the kryptonite, you put it on Amazon and have someone drop ship it for you.
Just do this. Just do this. And it's like not considering that most people don't have like access to those certain things, or they assume because they did it that way that it can work for someone else. And I think in some cases, maybe it can. Maybe you can replicate it and someone else can do it. But, like, also, there's other ways to get to that same thing. And it doesn't have to be as drastic as, like, kind of they make it seem.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so I think that's the thing, is that many roads lead to the same end destination. And you've just got to figure out what that road looks like for you. And the first start, again, is, like, setting
smart goals.
Yes. Setting and planning those goals. And
we're on the same page.
Yeah, now we're on the same page. But I also think that when we talk about like goals, we should talk about like your professional goals. I think it's important to set like not just your personal goals of what you want to happen to your life outside of work, but what you want to happen in your career, right? Because at the end of the day, no one's going to be more invested in your career than yourself. And like obviously if you don't want to invest in your career, that's okay. That's you. You don't have to. But I'm a career girly. I love talking career development, and I've realized that that's something super important, is setting those goals too. Like when I first started at the company I work for, Composely, I had like a 90-day check-in, and at my 90-day check-in, like, you know, we went over like everything I've done so far, and then we set goals for what the rest of the year should look like. And I think that's such an important process, because then at my annual review, we can look at like what did I accomplish, and like also not just how those goals help the company, but how we can align those goals with more of what I want to do, and like how like my passions and my what I want out of my career can be aligned with what the company needs. And I think that's an important conversation to be having with the internal like leadership teams at your company. Like if you're not having those conversations, you probably should be, because that's a good way to move forward. And it also lets you know, like, is your company willing to invest in you? You know, are they willing to invest in your career development? And for me, it's been something super enlightening and helpful. And I'm lucky, because it seems that like my company is very invested in my development. Anytime I want to talk about it, there's always someone that's willing to be like, okay, like, well, where do you want to be? Where do you want to see yourself? And always giving me great things to think about. And also, you know, they don't want to pigeonhole me into like something I don't want to do. It is really, they're working on, you know, finding that balance of like using my skill set and my knowledge to better the company, but also make sure like I'm happy doing what I'm doing, you know, and I'm challenged, and all those things that you should be when you're at a company. And I think when it comes to setting professional goals, you have to obviously you have to kind of look inside yourself and think, what do I want out of my career? And this is also more important, I think, too, is when you have to think about the big pictures. You know, this is laying the groundwork for the future and future opportunities. So you've got to think about what's your end goal career-wise. And that can be kind of hard, too. I got asked that in my first interview with Composely. I think our CEO, Mike, asked me, was like, if you could have, like, what's your dream role? And I was like, it's crazy because I don't think it exists yet. I really don't think my dream role has, like, been discovered.
When you say you don't think it exists, you mean it's just not, that position isn't available right now at that company? Like there's a role out there?
I don't think there's a role at a certain company that's like my dream role.
Can you elaborate on that? Because that's a really good goal to set. If like you're if you're wanting to build up your professional, like whether it's your resume and what you're trying to learn to do, or to maybe even create that role at the company.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
what does it encompass? Like, do you want to do SEO still? Maybe not. Maybe it's social media marketing. Maybe it's like a blend of like a bunch of things.
But I'm saying like, yeah, I'm saying like, I don't think my dream role is something that's been discovered yet, or I've been introduced to. Like, I think there's a lot of things I love. Like, I love what I do currently. I also love a bunch of career paths that I could go down. Like, not to say I don't love all the things that I'm doing and all the opportunities I've had this far, but when I think like dream role, like this is ideal, I don't think it's been out there. And I think it's something that probably, like, maybe it is something I build out here at Composely. And yeah, I think it's just, it was one of the most enlightening questions, because some people are like, oh, I want to be an engineer. Oh, I want to be, I don't know, president, or even like maybe a chief marketing like officer. And I thought about that. I was like, do I want to be like a chief marketing officer? But I think my problem is I do love leading people. I love putting myself in like leadership roles. But I've also been someone who likes the nitty gritty and like having my hands in something. Yeah. And often when you're in those leadership roles, you don't get to have a lot. It's often managing the people who have their hands in the things. And not to say I wouldn't be good at that or I wouldn't like doing it. I kind of want a combination of both, and I have yet to find something that's, well, actually, like right now I'm kind of doing both, where like I still have my hands in a lot of things, but I'm also managing people, and it's great. But I think there's a better combination too, and I don't know what that looks like, which can make it a little bit hard of like, where do I want to be? But sometimes you just also got to think about what's the next best step. There are some steps that like will prove to be beneficial no matter where you go in your next role. There's a lot of skills you can learn in most roles that you can replicate in completely different roles. Like project management is a skill that can be beneficial in most roles. Leadership is a skill that can be beneficial in most roles. So there's a lot of like soft skills that can be learned that can make you successful in possibly any role. And yeah, I think that you've just kind of got to think about where you want to go potentially, and also how the positions that you're interested in will get you there and what that looks like. And you can do some planning on your end, right? But you also got to talk with the people where you're currently working at. And if it's not something, if you don't like where you're currently working at and you don't see growth there, you got to consider,
for you
it's like, okay, like, do you want to move jobs, and what does that look like? And is it in the same industry? Is it in a different industry? And then think about those steps. Like we talked with Stephanie a couple episodes ago, and probably one of the greatest conversations we've had is like, you know, she completely shifted careers, and that was something that it took a while and there was a lot of self-doubt, but she did it. And I think a lot of people think that they can't because, I mean, they're like, oh, I'm too old, I can't just completely pivot, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been in that position, whatever it was that they're in, a job role or whatnot, for a long time, that they don't know how to. Sometimes that's why like people find the Stephanies of the world to like help them along the way. Obviously, she's a little more in the weeds of it. Like she's looking more towards people that are already in, that already know code for certain examples. So like, if it is that you, in this case, if you did want to learn how to code, you'd have to like take some kind of like training.
But that's to see. I think that's a misconception too. Is there are a lot of free courses out there for stuff you want to learn. I just got a TikTok today that pushed that was like, this is one of the things I use to learn how to code Python, and I'm like, do I want to learn how to code?
No, there's a lot of free stuff. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm trying to say is that
there's a lot of information out there to be able to kind of, you know, learn what you want. I do think it's a little bit harder in certain industries. I won't say it's super easy to make any transition like that, but like, one of the hardest things was getting a job in marketing, and thank God for this company, Composely, because I was ready to give up and trying to find my job in marketing, because I had this knowledge, I had my degree, I had like online courses I had taken, and I was trying to build my own stuff. But a lot of people were looking for that hands-on experience of like, okay, I need to see that you can run a PPC campaign. I need to see that you can actually execute. And I get that, but like, it's like if you give people a chance to learn, they can learn too. And I think there's just a lot of companies out there that don't give people a chance to learn, or just want someone that has the, you know, ability right then and there, because it's, you know,
it's a lot easier for them if they already have someone. Like, I know.
But there's a lot of people out there willing to learn and can prove to be fruitful in the long run if you give them a chance, because there's honestly some things like you can't just learn by testing yourself. Like if you want to run ads, for one, you gotta have money. Like if you want to learn how to run ads, you gotta have kind of some sort of money. There's not a lot of simulations that you can do. And then
like where you could play, because you need to.
Yeah, SEO is something that you probably could play around with by yourself. Or like social media, like they're looking, okay, well, have you grown an account? And so I mean, you could do that by yourself. You could learn, but it's just if you just teach me, like you could utilize me,
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of got off track with this, but I think it's smart to set both personal and professional goals, because I think you should be working obviously on your career and on yourself. And I found like separating that distinction to kind of like, I can look back this year, for instance, and be like, okay, what did I do with Composer this year? And also, what did I do personally this year? And like this year, for instance, like I'm looking at my vision board right now. Me and Caesar have our vision board, which we'll talk about in a second too, on our wall. And I did read some more books. Last year I didn't read any books, so I read like 5 or 6 books this year, and it's not a lot, but it is a lot more. I'm thinking about when he was like, they're talking about their New Year's goals in the office, and he hasn't eaten any vegetables yet. He goes, but I still got time. So I did that, and you can kind of reflect on where you were and where you're going. And I think a great way to do that, to segue, is to think about tools that will help you set goals and also kind of stick to those goals. So one of the tools that Caesar and I have used probably every year for the past 3 years is Vision Board. And it's kind of funny because we kind of upgraded our Vision Board, and I think we might upgrade it this year too. We used to do it on poster boards, and we used to kind of like draw and like write stuff down on it and kind of just keep it with us. Be like, this is our vision for the year. Which is funny because on the vision board of 2020, I drew Nevada. And I did move to Nevada. And I was like, I did it. So that was fun. But, Caesar and I have this kind of cork board, and we printed out like stuff and we tacked them on. And someone else who said he kind of uses this method was digital podcaster Dylan. I love that man. He has such good tips. It's been something I love to do. Do you like doing it? I mean, you're a guy. I think you can reach our guy male audience.
No, I mean, it's in a sense, vision board is there's like it's like some people I know will just like grab a notebook and like write down or visualize like on their computer. They'll like download pictures and put on a document. Yeah,
some people could create like Google Slides.
Yeah, like, slides, things like that. I remember I did one of those because
I've done one of those too.
I like read some kind of I forgot what it was. I read somewhere or heard something, and I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I ended up making like a Google Doc with like, and I just like basically what we did on the board instead of just like on a document. So I think anyone can do that. It can help them. I think it helps more having it visually where you can see it on a day-to-day basis, having it somewhere in your room or in your home. I've heard people using their fridge as one too.
Yeah, something that you look at, like somewhere that you're at every day.
And it's nothing like it's just a reminder. It's like pictures around your house. If you think about it, like if you hang pictures of your kids or your family around your house, you're like you put the best memories up, and it reminds you how special they are. And like this vision board is like how special those goals that you have are.
You think about like how am I working towards these.
Towards that, yeah.
I think vision boards are just a great, reflection, obviously, of where you want to go, and then also a way to think about it every day, put it somewhere that you look at every day, whether that's your bathroom, or like every morning, like, how am I working towards this? And there's a million different variations of how you can do it, which you can do it in a way that works for your life, it's very flexible, and I like that. And I think it's important because when we talk about planning and like setting goals for the new year, I think a lot of people can do the goal planning part and like can say, I want to reach these goals. But where we kind of fall off to is the execution. It's like, okay, the how are we going to get there? And I think that goes back to it being time bound. So if you want to run a marathon, how are you going to do it? Well, obviously, if you want to run a marathon by the end of the year, for one, you should probably set a date of like, this is when there's a marathon in my city or somewhere I could travel to. That means I have this much time to train, and then you got to create a training schedule, and that's the how. That training schedule is the how. And I think sometimes it's just hard for us to conceptualize that how of how will we get there. You know, it means putting in the work in, and what does that look like. And I think that's the other part, is like, not just if you have a vision board, maybe then putting down your goals and be like, okay, now let me write out how I'm going to do this. Because then you have that pathway, that, you know, roadmap to reaching that goal and what it looks like every day in your life, you know? And maybe it's one goal at a time. You don't have to set like 20 goals, you know? Maybe it's like, this year I want to accomplish these 3 things, and this is how I'm going to get there. Because I think we get like kind of goal happy, like, I want to do all these things.
Yeah, and you have, like,
and then it becomes so much
like,
to do, like, oh man. So, you know, maybe refining what that looks like of, okay, maybe I'm going to achieve these like 5 big things, and that's worth more than 20 little things, you know? So just being kind of realistic in how many goals you set to is probably the best thing you can do. And the other thing I kind of wrote down here, I was like talking about execution, but it's like, do you have the right support system around you to kind of achieve those things? I think one of the greatest things there is when it comes to setting goals and like planning is having an accountability, like partner, accountability system like around you. Is like your family holding you accountable, or maybe like your best friend, someone you can trust to kind of hold you to the standards you're setting for yourself.
Yeah. It's having obviously, like you just mentioned, like having someone who can help you reach that goal or goals that you have. So whether for example, I mean, we talked about this before, if you're looking to get more active, like what does that look like? How can they hold you accountable? Is it they're gonna slap you in the face to wake up, or I don't know, like something?
Or are they gonna text you in the morning?
Are they gonna text you in the morning? Or are they gonna ask you like, hey, did you do? I know when some people will do this, they have a group of friends that do this every year, or they'll have like an accountability team. It's like, hey, did you do XYZ today? And they're like, oh damn, I didn't. We're like, you better do it tomorrow. And then it's like,
well, it's like, why? Like, what was your excuse? Or like,
what was your excuse?
You know,
today?
someone, or like maybe someone. I know for me, it helps to have someone do it with me. You know, like Caesar and I think this will probably be on board this year, is like, you know, more active. Like we do tend to take walks, but I do want to get back into running. And it's having him be like, you know, let's run together. It helps someone who's doing it with you. I think it helps so you don't feel like you're doing it alone. So maybe get someone that's willing to has some of the same goals, like has some of the, at least like if it's active, like who else wants to get active this year? And how can you support each other? Because it is hard, and it's all habits, you know, we're all changing habits at that point. And it really takes a little bit for a habit to stick.
Yeah, it takes, they say 30 or 90 days or something like that.
Yeah, 30 to 90 days. I think in Atomic Habits, it's like, 30 to 90 days.
If you keep doing it, if you keep at it, you know, and they baby steps, you know, just got to take some time to it.
Yeah. I think the one thing I do want to mention, I might have mentioned it a little bit earlier in this podcast, is that you got to be strategic in how you execute the goal. It's not about flipping a switch and everything changing, because again, we will self-sabotage and revert back to those like behaviors that we don't want, because such a drastic change in our lives will be uncomfortable, and it won't be as easy as it would if you took it one day at a time. It's like if you're trying to improve your diet, it's like, okay, allowing yourself a little snack today, but slowly like maybe switching out like what snacks you eat and like healthier snacks, or, you know, whatever that looks like for you, and doing it like, you know, piece by piece. Like quitting cold turkey is just, I mean, some people can do it. I will say some people can quit cold turkey, and that's what they need, is just rip the Band-Aid off. But I think when it comes to a sustainable, like, growth, it's those tiny step towards your goals.
The small little steps upward toward that goal. So
yeah, and I think this year Caesar and I will share our goals. We will this podcast.
Time. Yeah, we're gonna make a whole podcast on it and whatnot. So
that way we have people out there to hold us accountable, and it'll be
awesome. Can't wait for that.
It'll be great. But yeah, I mean that's kind of all I have. Do you have any last thoughts, Caesar?
No, I mean, I feel like we definitely went at it for a little bit there, going back and forth.
Me arguing with Caesar, you're wrong!
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. That's the thing. That's the thing, is like, I really hope that that wasn't misconstrued, because I'm not saying that you're wrong. All I was saying was we ended up coming back towards the same
That guy
thing.
on YouTube is gonna be like, she does have a whiny voice.
That guy on YouTube. Oh my god. That's one goal for you, Sunny. It's just to ignore.
Oh yeah.
Again, it's good to have positive comments. We talked about this before, but it's also just people. They don't know you. So at the end of the day, people can make assumptions about anyone in the world, whether they know them or not.
Yeah.
So
I just
at the end of the day, you know yourself.
For context, I had a lot of people comment on a short that I posted about the Elon Musk and Twitter situation that was from our last podcast on toxic productivity. And a lot of men commented saying how stupid I was and a moron and my parents have failed me and, that I'm just dumb and I don't know anything, I don't work hard. All this stuff about someone they don't even know, which is crazy. And I am pretty proud of myself in saying, I didn't argue with these people. I simply was like, to give you more context, this is what I'm saying. If you listen to the podcast, you'd see the full context of why we were even talking about it. Yeah, and I was actually telling my mom about that yesterday, and she was like, oh my god. I was like, yeah. I was like, thought the next one was going to be like a death threat or something, because people were getting so rowdy in the comments. But, 2 years ago, that would have had me like, I can't do this anymore. But now, it's just, people will have what they want to say. It's, at the end of the day, you gave me a view, so.
Yeah, you can look at it that way too. But, for me, it's just people. I grew up with the internet at an early age, and I realized that people will say the rudest, meanest things, and who cares?
It's because they can hide behind that. I was I dare you to say that to me in person, man. Douglas told me I should tell him.
They won't.
You're so hot.
They'll tell you, we'll meet up somewhere, and then it's dumb. It's just there's no point in putting any energy towards negative comments. It's different if it's a critique. Like, hey, I love what you said about this, but what about X, Y, Z? Very well written. Those types of comments I love. I get those all the time when it comes to my technology channel that I do on cameras. And I love when someone says something that I made a learn. Oh, I never thought about that. Hey, good question. I'm gonna follow up and make a video on that. That's the best, where everyone learns. Not you suck.
Oh, you stupid.
You're stupid. You had a horrible family, whatever it was, or you didn't have parents. What's that gonna do? Nothing. Yeah,
but it's okay. It's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to grow and learn, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And
at the end of the day, that's true. Mm-hmm.
I would suggest that those people have a little bit of growing to do, but it's okay.
That too. Yeah, they have a little resentment and that they're hiding still.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
But anyways.
But Caesar and I enjoy doing this podcast, and we're not going to stop just because of comments that they didn't even disagree with Caesar; they just disagree with me, which is fine. It's because I'm a woman. But yeah, this has been today's episode. We are so excited and just grateful that we continue to do this. We're almost at 100 subscribers. We're at 97, so man. Close. 3 more to 100, and to even conceptualize that we started, and 100 doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme, but it is, and it's nice to see people want to watch this or listen to it, and I'm appreciative. I really am grateful. So this has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez,
and me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you again next week.
See you guys later.